Billionaire Mark Cuban is upset that he can no longer win any arguments on Twitter. Those are his words. I'll show you the clip in just a moment because, in large part, conservatives are finally growing a spine and pushing back against DEI and aren't afraid to admit the obvious that there is systemic racism in America, systemic anti-whiteism, but also in part to Elon loosening the rules. And so people who are tweeting mean things to him aren't getting suspended anymore. But first, there is a war of words being waged between the Democrats and the Republicans by our respective presidential candidates, and it's unlike any presidential campaign has ever seen.
The radical left Democrats are at it again. They're constantly making up stories about me because their candidate is a mental and physical basket case. There's never been anything like it. He's also the worst president in the history of our country. The disinformation of the Democrats is unbelievable. They do it because they have a horrible candidate. Don't associate me with the mental midget that you portray, because I want to tell you, he should not be leading this country.
So Donald Trump called old Joe a mental midget, and in response, old Joe called us Neanderthals.
The idea there's no such thing as climate change. I love that, man. I love some of my Neanderthal friends who still think there's no climate change.
Obviously, he forgot about what happened after Hillary Clinton called us deplorables, because I would say Neanderthals is actually way more insulting than calling somebody deplorable. That's going to win you over a lot of votes, Joe. Just keep it up. And I doubt that that was in the teleprompter, because I highly doubt that even his speechwriters are that stupid to put such an incendiary comment into his script. Both old Joe and Donald Trump were at the southern border yesterday. Donald Trump because he wanted to be down there. Old Joe because he was shamed into going down there. It is now pretending that he's going to try to solve the very problem that he created and that he was boasting about. You know, allowing the invasion of 10 million illegal aliens over the course of the last 3 years of his administration. And Donald Trump came up with a new nickname for the California governor.
We had the most secure border, and people weren't coming because they knew they weren't going to get in. And we weren't promising free education, free medical, free everything. I mean, all the promises that are made, no wonder they come. I mean, you look at what this governor, Newscum from California, isn't that his name, Newscum? What he's done to California is unbelievable. People are pouring in. They think they're going to get medical aid. And our soldiers, our vets aren't being taken care of. But people that come into our country illegally are.
New scum. Now, personally, I do prefer Governor Gavin Newsom, but you got to admit, that is pretty funny. And speaking of mean names, Mark Cuban has had enough of being called them. So he's sounding like every other Democrat and talking about quitting Twitter.
X is just such a cesspool now, right?
Show.
It's a hole, right? You can't win no matter what. Everything, like less time. Elon that up, right?
Badly.
He that up. But you know, Instagram's still chill, TikTok's still chill, and there's other places, right, that aren't so bad where you can mess with people and have fun. But you just can't do it on Twitter.
This X conversation is important because, you know, as the conversation around like real radical free speech continues to like carry on here, I mean, that's kind of what you have there.
Yes, bozo, and that's why we like it. But to be clear, it's still not a free speech platform. It's a freer speech platform. There's still way too many restrictions, and Elon still has not restored certain people's accounts and has continued to ban other accounts for supposed hate speech. This clown is Logan Paul's sidekick, his yes man. If you don't know who Logan Paul is, you're lucky you haven't wasted any brain cells or any of your time paying any attention to him. But I would say basically at this point he is a wannabe boxer or a WWE wrestler who also has a podcast, which gets some very big names on there because he's very popular amongst the Generation Z crowd. Establishment types can't help but reveal themselves when the topic of free speech on social media comes up. Let's not forget that Piers Morgan spent an entire week having a total meltdown after Elon Musk reinstated Alex Jones' account.
I'm a passionate defender of free speech. There's a massive clue in the name of this show, uncensored. And I believe in it. I believe that all honestly held opinions, however offensive they are, belong in the open, where they can be challenged, debated, and exposed. But there are limits on free speech.
Yes, like threats and harassment. We know.
There are laws, and there is a line. I've always said that Alex Jones is a perfect example of where that line got crossed. He's a conspiracy theorist and shock jock in America.
who said some things on his show over a decade ago. And so people like Piers Morgan don't want him allowed on the internet ever again. We know. Too bad. This disinformation expert on MSNBC, which is an Orwellian term meaning a disinformation agent, is upset that we have the First Amendment in the United States and would rather have laws like in Canada and Europe, where people often get arrested for saying mean things about protected groups of people.
Do you believe the U.S. is particularly vulnerable to disinformation, or do you believe that we're kind of unexceptional and it's the same? We're as susceptible to it as every other country.
Actually, Rachel, I think we're more susceptible to it than other countries. And that's because some of our greatest strengths can also be our Achilles heel. So, for example, our deep commitment to free speech in our First Amendment. It is a cherished right. It is an important right in democracy, and nobody wants to get rid of it. But it makes us vulnerable to claims that anything we try to do to regulate speech is censorship. Of course, the Supreme Court has held that all fundamental rights, even the right to free speech, can be limited as long as there is a compelling governmental interest and the restriction is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. But I think anytime someone tries to do anything that might limit free speech, people claim censorship.
They're not trying to censor free speech. They're just trying to regulate it. And sadly, like I said, Twitter continues to regulate people's speech, despite those on the right claiming that it's a free speech platform. It's not. It's a freer speech platform, but they are quietly updating the terms of service, going back to some of the old policies that were in place under the previous ownership, like banning people from using the wrong pronoun, where now the terms of service reads that they will reduce the visibility of posts that purposely use different pronouns to address someone other than what that person uses for themselves. Now, notice that they're not using the term misgendering or dead naming. Those were leftist buzzwords that were in the previous terms of service, but this policy means exactly the same thing. And it goes on to say, or that use a previous name that someone no longer goes by as part of their transition. So again, if you call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce, violation of the policies. Now, you're not going to get banned at least, but like the new CEO, Linda Yaccarino, says, well, you have the supposed freedom of speech. You can post things, but you don't have freedom of reach. So nobody's going to see it because, as the policy says, they will reduce the visibility of the post. Given the complexity of determining whether such a violation has occurred, we must always hear from the target to determine if a violation has occurred. So when the rainbow people start flagging users' posts for mispronouncing them or misgendering them, then Twitter will determine that the visibility, the post will be shadow banned, basically. Of course, reduce the visibility. That's shadow banning. And this is the proper response. If you ever use a pronoun that somebody doesn't prefer or like, this is at a recent Florida state legislature hearing.
Y'all weigh the freedoms of your constituents with the fact that we haven't had another mass shooting in Florida since Parkland, since we passed these gun reforms.
Thank you, sir.
It's ma'am. Thank you.
Whatever. And by the way, you can no longer post links on Twitter to videos from banned.video, which is Alex Jones' site, which is essentially his own personal YouTube, where he posts archives of the show and clips of the show. And under the previous Twitter regime, all links to it were banned. And I thought that they lifted that ban, but now they're not allowed again. So if you want to post a link over on Twitter to the latest episode of the Alex Jones Show, it will not let you. Something went wrong, it says, but don't fret. Let's give it another shot. Oh, yes, let's, shall we? And it doesn't matter how many times you try, it doesn't do it. Now, this could be a mistake, but most likely it's probably some low-level employee who got upset and just decided to implement a URL-wide ban to any videos from banned.video. And when Alex pointed this out, the fake news website Raw Story posted a completely fabricated headline and mischaracterized everything that Alex said about it, which then got posted on Twitter, and then Elon responded, upset, saying, "What is Alex complaining about?" So Elon knows about it. And then thankfully, this fake post got community noting that it is fake news with a misleading headline. Alex Jones already commented that he does not think that this is Elon Musk. And so that now was a couple days ago, and the problem still isn't fixed. And if you haven't seen any of my tweets over there for the last few months, it's because I'm on a Twitter fast. I haven't posted actually all year. And like I've said in the past, it tends to be a big time waste. So I use it just to kind of monitor what's going on news gather. But as far as posting over there, I just try to stay away from that because it really just sucks you in to reading all of the replies and getting sucked into pointless and meaningless arguments. So I would much rather just focus here making videos and writing books. Of course, my latest, The War on Conservatives, which you definitely should order, because if you like watching my videos, you're really going to love reading my books. So order The War on Conservatives in paperback from Amazon.com or download the ebook from any of the major ebook stores. And of course, there's a link to the Amazon listing in the description below. So click it and head on over there and check it out.